أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم فقال ربكم ادعوني أستجب لكم آمين يا رب العالمين الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين اللهم اجمع شمل المسلمين والكريستيان والأمة في مدينة دباو وسلم دائما مجتمعنا هذا بالسلم والأمن والتقدم في بلدنا هذا آمين يا رب العالمين ربنا لا تزغ قلوبنا بعد إذ هديتنا وهب لنا من لدنك رحمة إنك أنت الوهاب ربنا إنك أنت الوهاب ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار وصلى الله على خير خلقه سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين آمين يا رب العالمين.
In the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Amen. Our most gracious Heavenly Father, we come to you today to praise and worship you and give you thanks for all the things you continue to provide for ourselves and our families. Father, we humbly ask for forgiveness for all the times we have offended you, when we forget to acknowledge your presence in the image of our brothers and sisters, and for moments we fail to be good stewards of the blessings you have given us. Continue to guide and protect each one of us, Lord, that we may always walk in the lights of your everlasting love and mercy. Grant us, Father, with your comfort in times of distress and with your strength in times of weakness. Bestow upon us your unending grace and healing, that we may in turn become instruments of gentleness and compassion to others. We ask all this in the name of your Son, our Lord Jesus Christ, with the prayer and the intercession of our Blessed Mother. Amen.
Hello! Ayan. Magandang umaga po sa ating lahat. Nandito na naman po tayo sa ating Casio Webinar Tech sessions with Casio Calculators Philippines, and alam ko you're all excited sa ating session ngayong Sabado. I think this is our 7th session of this Casio Tech webinar session. At this point, we will be discussing another topic with the help of a very knowledgeable speaker and very competent speaker. So without much ado, I will introduce now our guest speaker this morning. He is an education program supervisor in mathematics at SDO Makati, graduated cum laude with a degree of Bachelor of Secondary Education, major in mathematics at Philippine Normal University in 2001. He finished his Master of Arts, Master of Science in Mathematics at Ateneo de Manila University in 2015, an author of our World of Math Grade 10 Bibal Publishing House, a recipient of 2013 MTAP Exemplary Teacher, a lecturer in MTAP DepEd NCR Convention, and a judge on a sectoral and regional Metrobank MTAP DepEd Math Challenge. He is also a trainer in various mathematics competitions such as MMC, Philippine Mathematical Olympiad, and UP Matirang Matibay. A trainer in the National Training of Trainers on Grade 6 K-12 program for the Department of Education in 2016, and a trainer at National Training of Trainers on Grade 10 K-12 program for DepEd in 2013. He taught mathematics subject in the foundation program of those students who are taking Bachelor of Secondary Education, major in mathematics and engineering courses. He handles higher mathematics such as abstract and linear algebra, descriptive and inferential statistics, Euclidean geometry, plane trigonometry, vector analysis, and calculus classes. He also taught students how to use technology in mathematics by using different mathematical and graphical software such as Casio calculators, conducts and interprets some mathematical research and investigations based on the students' output. Let us now welcome our education program supervisor in mathematics and our speaker this morning, Sir Michael Lee. Good morning, Sir Michael.
Hello, good morning. So it's a gloomy Saturday, medyo maulan.
Yes, sir. Musta po kayo, sir?
Okay naman, kaya pa.
Kaya.
Napaka-busy ngayon.
Yes, sir. Sir, let's talk about our preparation this sa parating na school year dahil bubukas ito sa October 5 bago tayo magsimula sa inyong discussion. Sir, as a mathematics supervisor in SDO Makati, paano ba tayo naghahanda para sa parating na new normal in education?
So right now, syempre walang kamatayan yung module making ng mga teachers and mga writers. And until now, we are now doing the second quarter. We're done with the first quarter and we are now in the stage of distributing those modules to different schools here in Makati. So the writers are very busy in doing the second quarter.
So ayun na, sir, nakita ko sa isang post ng taga Makati na talagang pinamigay na yung mga pen drive para sa mga bata. At ito ay naglalaman ng mga modules nila. I think some are interactive, some are regular modules na makakatulong para sa pagkatuto ng ating mga learners ngayong new normal. So, Sir Michael, alam ko, excited na po kayo. So, let us all welcome again our speaker this morning, our education program supervisor in SDO Makati, Sir Michael Lee.
Okay, thank you. So good morning to all of you. So my task for today is to discuss about inverse trigonometric functions. So this is a topic from pre-calculus, I think. So this is week 6 to 8. And then under the MELC, the objectives here are to illustrate the dominant range of the inverse trigonometric function. And then later we will evaluate the trigonometric expression. So I will focus on the basic trigonometric function first, the sine, cosine, and tangent. And then if we have enough time we will move to the reciprocal functions, which are the secant, cosecant, and cotangent. Okay? So my task is to give you an illustration, the dominant range. This is very important, and most of the teachers, nakakalungkot, they keep on skipping this dominant range. Maybe they're not that capacitated in discussing the dominant range. But I will try my best to make it very easy and doable to all of you. So I will establish first the concept of an inverse function. So I will connect the concept in algebra and then connect to trigonometric function so that may hugot ako bakit ganun yung nangyari sa trigonometric function. So I will start from an algebra first. So we know an function f has an inverse if and only if the function is a one-to-one function. So napaka-common sa atin yung one-to-one function. So when we say one-to-one function, not two elements in the domain of F corresponds to the same element in the range. So the image in the range should not be equal, should not be equal, so that for every values of x, no, walang range na magkapareho dapat doon. So parang ganito siya, no? So I'll just write. So it seems na para siyang yung f of x of 1 not equal to f of x of 2. Okay? So pag dinrawing ko yan, so alam naman natin basically ang ang function na 1 to 1, not 1 to 1 ay ito, no? So the y equals x kasi it will touch. So for x of 1 is here, x of 2. So the x of 1 and x of 2, iisa lang ang kanyang range. So nag-equal siya, no? So the f of x of 1 equal to f of x of 2. So therefore, this is not a 1-to-1. So not 1-to-1 function. Okay, kasi we avoid this to happen. So to get that, to test if it's 1-to-1 function or not, we use the horizontal line test. That's why we have here, this is very common, no? Nalilito teacher minsan dyan, horizontal line test and the vertical line test. The vertical line test to test if it's a function or not. But the horizontal line test will detect kung itong function ay 1-to-1 or hindi 1-to-1. So that we satisfy this condition. No? And then one of the properties of a 1-to-1 function, if you get the inverse of a 1-to-1 function, suppose this is the one function, okay, this is your f of x, and then your f inverse, this is a 1-to-1 function, and then yung f inverse, it should be the reflection along the line y equals x. This is in algebra. So if this is the f of x, I'm sure that my f inverse of x will start here and then similarly to like that, no? Magka-reflection siya. So along this line. So it means that if this is x and y, here, magre-reverse yung order ng x and y. Okay? And aside from that, I want to establish this. Okay? That the domain of f equals the range of f inverse. And the range of f equals the domain of the f inverse. So, nag-i-interchange sila. So, kung dito, xy, dito naman ay yx. So, nag-i-interchange ang kanilang the domain of the f of x becomes the range of the f inverse, and the range of the f of x becomes the domain of the f inverse. And aside from that, I want also to emphasize this property that f of f inverse of x is equal to f inverse of f of x equals x. So it boils down to x. Kasi we know, so I'll just make some notations about that. Alam nating mga teacher na yung if I will let f inverse of x be y, okay, this will only happen if so if my f inverse of x is y, then the f of f inverse, this one, or the f of y equals x, because your y is equivalent to f inverse of x. So, para ko na lang nire-write ito, no? This portion. So, dapat totoo ito, that the f inverse of x equals y if and only if the f of y equals x, or similarly to this. Or the meaning of this statement that for every point yx located is on f, or in the function f, then the ordered pair xy is on the f inverse. Okay? So that's the meaning of that. So itong property na ito, paulit-ulit ko itong sasabihin mamaya hanggang sa matapos ang discussion ko. Kasi this will help us a lot to solve inverse trigonometric function. Okay, the graph of a function and the graph of its inverse are symmetric with respect to the line y equals x. So this one. Okay, we're done with the concept. We established the concept now. We'll proceed now to an example of an inverse. So find the inverse of the function defined by. So if I will go, I'm going to solve this. This is a quadratic function and the graph is a parabola. And we know that it touches, so let us do the factoring first. X minus 1 and then x minus 3. I know that it touches x equals 1 and x equals 3. Okay, and the vertex of this, I will solve the h. The h is negative b over 2a. So negative of negative 4 over 2 times 1, which is the vertex will be at 2 at h, and then the k will be, we know that it's just the f of 2. F of 2 is 2 squared minus 4 times 2 plus 3, which is 4 minus 8, negative 4 plus 3, negative 1. So I know that the vertex located at 2, negative 1. So if I'm going to graph that, so we will graph the function now. So I use this. So parang ganito na rin ang setup niyo sa classroom. So let us imagine I'm now an online teacher in mathematics. So lalagyan ko na nito. Okay. So it touches at 2, negative 1. So here is 2, negative 1. So it's here. So that is the vertex. And at 1 and 3, it touches the roots of the function. So I'm sure that the graph will be like that. Okay. This is a rough sketch of the graph. And then if I attempt to get the inverse of this, I have to test it first, if it's 1-to-1 or not. So as I said a while ago, if I will draw the horizontal line test, dapat if I draw the horizontal, it will never touch the graph at 2 points. But in this case, it touches, no? So therefore, this quadratic function doesn't have an inverse, no? So the f inverse does not exist. So to make that existing, we will restrict now the domain. So that's why dun papasok yung idea na nililimit mo yung domain. So how are you going to do that? So one way to do that is to limit the domain. So I'll just erase portion of the graph that will make it a 1-to-1 function. So because we fail to have a 1-to-1 function, so one way to do that, so don't lose hope. We can still make it a 1-to-1 by restricting the domain. So my domain now, I'll just make a summary here. So my f of x, and then the f inverse of x. Okay, I'll make a summary here regarding the domain. So ito lang muna yung didiscuss ko para may hugot ako. Why is that the story of the f inverse of trigonometric function becomes like that. So later. So my domain here is from 2 to positive infinity. From 2 to positive infinity. So I'll just use other color. 2 to positive infinity. Okay. And then the range is, after restricting the domain, the range becomes -1 to positive infinity. Okay. And then I'm looking for, so no, we know that this is 2, -1. And a while ago, we established that we just interchanged the x and the y. So I'm expecting there will be in the F inverse, so this is the f of x, I'm expecting in my F inverse, there should be a point -1, 2, no, as one point, as part of the point. So -1, and then there will be a 2. So we know that alam natin, so -1, and then at 2. So I'm sure may -1, 2, meron ditong point. So that's the other point of the F inverse of x. So if I will draw, I'm sure this is the graph of the F inverse of x. Kasi dito 2, -1. And we established a while ago that we just interchange that the domain of the f of x becomes the range of the F inverse of x. And the range of the f of x becomes the domain of the f of x. Okay? So, that's one way to establish first bago tayo mag-proceed sa trigonometric function. So, and notice it's still symmetric with the line y equals x. So gusto ko ganyan ng teacher, ini-establish niya yan. And then if you read the graph of the F inverse of x, the domain will be different story. So the domain will be -1 to positive infinity, and then the range will be 2 to positive infinity. Sa ganitong topic, ang puhunan mo lang dito ay mata eh. Sisilipin mo lang, or do you just look on the graph and then find the territory of the graph in the x and territory of the graph along the y-axis for the range. So, kagaya, tititigan mo lang and then find out anong sinakop niya sa x-axis. That will be the domain. Ano yung sinakop ng graph sa y-axis? That will be the range. So, it's like a territory. When I started teaching the domain and range, I always relate that to a territory. Just like here, the domain of Mayor Abby is Makati. So that's the domain. That's the territory of Mayor Abby. Okay. So I want also to establish another way. It's just an interchange, no? Sabi ko kanina, lagi ko yung sinasabi na interchange lang, no? So yan. Ganyan. Gusto ko ganyan din tayo pag nagturo. Na yung domain ng f of x becomes the range of the f inverse of x. Tapos yung domain naman yung range naman ng f of x, nandito lang. So madali ko siyang natitrace. But the question is, f of x is given. This one is given. Correct? But this one, I don't know what's the name. But I have the graph here. I have the graph here. Okay? So, how are you going to compute that? So to compute that, let's have more slide. So maybe I'll just insert it here. So to compute that, we will have here f of x I'll use black color. F of x squared minus 4x plus 3. We know that we just, kasi if I'm going to trace this, it's like, okay, let's go back here. F of x squared minus 4x plus 3. So we interchange. So that's the one way of doing it, x, and then all y becomes, all x becomes y, then plus 3. And then my attempt here is to get the f inverse of x. That's my main problem. What's the name? So here, I'll make the left side be 0, y squared 4y plus 3 minus x. And then I'll treat this as, my a here is 1, my b here is 4, and then here is my c. I'll treat this as quadratic function or quadratic equation. So I'll use the negative b, negative of negative. Kasi my attempt is to compute for y. One way to do that, to separate y, is to solve for the y. Okay? And then I'll use quadratic formula. So negative of negative b plus minus b squared, negative 4 squared, 4, 1. And then my c here is the whole thing, the 3 minus x. All over 2. So this is my y becomes my x. So I'm solving now the y. So my y now, sorry. So this should be y kasi I'm solving the y now. So this is y. Yan. Okay. So y 4 plus minus 16 minus 12 plus 4x, and then all over 2. So y becomes 2, this one. So mamaya na natin, 4, parang di ako malito. This can be 4x plus 4, and then all over 2. So y 4 plus minus common monomial factor, so lalabas siya. So magiging 4 x plus 1, so 2 x plus 1 all over 2. So there will be two things here. 2 plus minus square root of x plus 1. Yan. Yung isa ay plus, yung isa naman ay negative. But a while ago, if I'm going back to my slide, this one, very common, no? Very obvious that this is the square root of, kasi this is, if you use your knowledge in translation, this is the square root of x. Square root of x. And then moving 1 unit to the left, that will be square root of x plus 1. And then moving 2 units upward, that will be this one, square root of x plus 1, and then plus 2. So, nasa labas yung 2. So, madali mo siyang matitrace, the name itself of the F inverse. Kasi it's a radical function. It's just a result of the translation of the radical function from square root of x, moving 1 unit to the left, square root of x plus 1, and then 2 units upward, square root of x plus 1 plus 2. But what I want Shino ko lang yung solution, how to get that, so that students will not be shocked, or I want to establish a fixed step in discovering the F inverse of X, okay, using the quadratic formula. I seldom see teachers doing this. Medyo hindi nila binibigyan ng attempt tong problem na to eh. Yang ganyan. So this is now the F inverse. This is now your F inverse of X. Okay? Which verifies or validates our problem here. Okay? So that's in algebra. So let's now proceed to trigonometry. Notice the sine, cosine, tangent, and the rest, all of them are not one-to-one function. But in Trigo, there is a topic about inverse trigonometric function. How come that those functions that are not one-to-one has now an inverse? So maybe they did the same procedure in algebra. So they just restrict the domain. So, ganun din ang gagawin natin ngayon. So, I'll just put some names here of my, so this is 0. I know that is 0. And then, so 0 to 2 pi, that's the period. And then here is pi. And then this is pi over 2. Okay. So, pi over 2. Okay, next. So here is also negative pi over 2. Okay. So this is not a one-to-one because if I'll draw a line here, it touches at 2 points. So to make it a one-to-one, yung hugot ko sa algebra kanina, we will make it one-to-one by restricting the domain. So to do that, so we will restrict the domain. So how are you going to do that? So we will erase some portion of the graph. Okay. So one way to do that is to erase this portion and that one up to this point. So to make it one-to-one function. So the remaining portion will be the considered function na kukunan mo na ng F inverse of X. So that is already the remaining portion, the graph now will be your portion na kukunan ko na ng F inverse. So here, this is my maximum point and then negative 1. So gusto ko ma-establish to na ito ay point, that point is negative pi over 2, 1, and then ito namang point na to ay, this is negative 1, negative pi over 2, no, this is pi over 2 pala, sorry. This should be, sorry. It should be pi over 2. Yeah, I'll just rewrite para maliwanag. Pi over 2, 1. Here it is negative pi over 2, comma negative 1. Okay. That's the important point. So that if you graph it here, so alam mo na ito dapat ay yung mga value sa xy, the x-axis, mapupunta siya sa y-axis kasi nag-interchange. That's one of the properties. So this is pi over 2, pi over 2, Here, it's negative pi over 2. And then, yung nasa y nito, mapupunta siya sa x. Negative 1, and then 1. And then, yung ating graph, original is the green. That's the f of x, which is the sine x. Yung red natin, yan yung f inverse of x. Okay? And na-establish ko rin na nag-interchange. No? Ito ay naging 1 pi over 2. Ito rin ay naging negative 1, negative pi over 2. Yan, ganyan napakita sa bata na makita nila na nag-interchange talaga. Kasi ito, this portion, this is originally pi over 2, 1. Ito naman ay this portion, this is negative pi over 2, negative 1. So, nag-interchange lang itong dalawang to at saka yan, dalawang yan. And another na na-establish ko kanina na it is symmetric with the line y equals. It's just a reflection along the line y equals x. Okay, that's good. Okay, so to sum up, let us have some summary here. The sine x, the y, the f of x, which is sine x, and then the f inverse of x, which is in notation sine inverse of x, yung kulay red. So the domain, gusto ko lang makita natin yung domain. The domain of sine x, so domain and then the range. So the domain of is negative pi over 2 to pi over 2. Tititigan lang natin ang graph. And then ang range niyang ating sine x, negative 1 to 1. Napaka-importante nito. So interchange lang. In the f inverse of x, yung domain niya ay naging range. So based on the red. So negative pi over 2 and then pi over 2 here. So yan siya. Tapos, nag-i-interchange lang, no? Then, ito naman, negative 1, 1. Yan. Okay. And then, establish mo yon na sulat mo yan. Napakahalaga sa bata nito, yung ganyan siya. So, preliminary ko, concept muna. I will establish. So, later ko na ika-calculate. So that's the domain and the range of the sine x. Let's move to cosine. So cosine. In the cosine, again, it's not one-to-one function. Kasi if you draw again a horizontal line test, we fail to pass the horizontal line test. It touches the graph. So therefore, one way to do that is to make it a one-to-one. So one way to do this is to restrict again the domain. One way to do that is to restrict the domain. So we will restrict the domain from here. So I will erase some portion and then at this point, yeah, to make it one-to-one. Because if I draw a horizontal line test at this time, it will only touch at one point. So therefore, it's a one-to-one already. But what are the coordinates there? So this is 0. I think this is kasi 2 pi to kanina. So kung 2 pi yan, nandito tayo sa pi. So 0 to pi, that's the domain now. So now, I know that this is a point. So, still negative 1 and then 1. So, naging 1-to-1 na siya. So, may chance na tayo to get the F inverse of that. So, the point here is pi, negative 1. And then the point here, it is 0, 1. Nilalagay ko lagi yung point na yan para madali ko siyang malolocate pag dindraw ko yung kanyang F inverse. Tapos itong 0 pi, yan ay magiging, mapupunta na siya sa y-axis. So ito ay 0, I know that this will be pi. So pi na siya. Tapos yung ating y magiging x. So negative 1, 1. Okay? So itong point na to, it means that point, it is just negative 1 pi. So na-establish mo na naman yung nag-i-interchange ang point. And then this one, 1, 0, which is in the original, in my f of x, it's 0, 1. But in my f inverse of x, it is 1, 0. Okay? And then it is again symmetric. So if I'll show you that why that it's symmetric, medyo hindi siya halata dito kasi the original, it should be like this. No? So we have to erase some portion. So the blue, which is the original function, which is cosine, and then it's just a reflection along the line y equals x. Lagi yan. Okay lang na paulit-ulit mong sinasabi sa bata yan, pero it will retain kapag madaldal ang teacher about this. You have to be makulit in saying that to establish the concept. And they will never forget that concept. Okay? So we will now look on the graph and then find out those domain and range. That's my objective. Illustrate the domain and range. This is cosine x, and then cosine inverse of x. And then here, the domain again, and then the range here. So domain and range. Bihira ang teacher na medyo maano sa domain and range. Parang they skip this when it talks about graphing. Parang they don't like it. But once you are very good in graphing, napakadali ng buhay in solving some problems in math. So domain here, it's 0 to pi. Okay? 0 to pi, based on the graph. The territory started from 0 until pi. But the range of the original is still the same as negative 1. The territory along the y started from negative 1 to 1. So, ang puhunan ko lang dyan ay mata. No, hindi ako nagsasolve. And then, since I have now knowledge about the F inverse, the property, na it's just an interchange. No? So, I'm sure that the F inverse will be negative 1 to 1. And then here, it's 0 to pi. Yan, 0 to pi. Let's verify on the graph. So the domain, negative 1 to 1, the territory of the red graph, it's started from negative 1 to 1, and then the range is started, so along the y, you look on the y, the territory started from 0 to pi, which is here. Okay? That's the concept of cosine inverse. Okay? Proceed tayo sa tangent. Tangent, it's also not 1-to-1. So surprisingly, it's not also 1-to-1. But there is a way. Kaya nga nung inaano ko to, pine-prepare ko, laging may way pa rin talaga si Lord. Kung meron kang toxic sa buhay, may way pa rin para hindi maging toxic. So it's just a matter of choice. So ito naman, not 1-to-1 siya, but don't lose hope. May paraan pa rin dyan si Lord. So you can restrict your domain. So parang mga kaibigan, kung may toxic ka in your environment, you restrict your environment. Choose your battle, sabi nga nila. Choose your friends. Okay? So we will make it one very important property of the graph of a tangent. Ang ayaw ni tangent, the domain, ang ayaw niya ay ang mga family of 90s, yung mga 90 to 70 or negative pi over 2, 3 pi over 2. Ayaw niya yung mga yan. So, asymptotic yan. Alam natin dyan. So, pag sa graph, no, negative pi over 2, ayaw yan ni tangent. And ito rin, pi over 2, ayaw rin ni tangent yan. So, that's why it's not written here. So, I'll just put some details. So, yan. That's why it's a vertical asymptote there. At that line, x equals negative pi over 2 and pi over 2. Kasi pag pinlog in mo yan, mag-error si Calcu. Ayaw niya yung mga yan. Kasi undefined siya dyan. So, boundary niya yan. So, now, kung boundary niya yan, restrict ko lang ang domain. Pag na-restrict ko si domain, para maging 1-to-1 siya ulit, buburahin ko yung mga portion na hindi siya magiging 1-to-1. So, this portion. So, that portion, bura. And then here, to make it 1-to-1. So, kunyari, this is an online teaching. You have to do this in your screen na ini-erase mo kasi wala ka nang blackboard and eraser doon. So, this one, it's already 1-to-1. So, we're so happy. We can get the F inverse of this. Okay? And then, sabi ko kanina, itong X magiging Y yan. So, in your graph here, magiging Y na yan, pi over 2. Ito naman, magiging negative pi over 2. Okay? So, ayun din, isa ring magandang property, yung vertical asymptote magiging horizontal asymptote. Kasi F inverse na siya. Okay? So, that's the meaning of that. Another, yan. So, the red one, that's the graph of the F inverse. Then the blue, that's the graph of the F of x, which is tangent. So let me summarize it again. So my f of x, it's tangent. My f inverse of x, it's tangent inverse of x. And then the domain of tangent x, the domain will be negative pi over 2, but it's not closed interval kasi the domain restricted siya dyan. So, dyan lang siya po pwede. And then the range, notice the range, all reals, kasi may arrow yan dyan. All reals, lahat kaya niya. So, negative infinity to infinity, positive infinity. And then, my domain of the F inverse of x, yan. So, negative infinity to positive infinity. So, sulat ko lang, which is just an interchange. Yan, interchange lang yan. And na-establish ko naman na yan kanina. So, hindi na siya bago. Negative pi over 2, pi over 2. Yan. Okay, good. So, I think we're done establishing, illustrating the domain and range of the three basic trigonometric functions. The original, the parent function, and the F inverse function together with the domain and range. How come that the domain and range becomes like that? And how come that the graph becomes like that? So you have to establish that to your class. Okay, and then we will now move to some cosecant. Later ko na i-discuss. I know all of you are excited to solve problems. Okay, let's start from this first problem. So I'll use blue ink. This one, sine of the sine inverse. Na-establish ko kanina, ito. Na-establish ko to kanina na f of the f inverse of x is equal to x. Or f inverse pala nasusulat of f of x is still the same as x. So we established that. And I can use that again here. I can use that here in solving some problems. Okay? In your calculator, the answer, let's say in your calculator, let's press it first in your calculator. Sine. So, make sure pala, yung calculator mo ay naka-angle unit. So, 2, and then press 2 radian. Naka-radian tayo. Okay. Let me plug in sine, shows shift, sine inverse, 0.4. 0.4. And then that one. So the answer is 2/5, or in decimal, that's 0.4. So, kasi paano to nangyari? So actually, you can solve this without using calculator. So, but if you want the students should validate that and verify using the use of this Casio calculator. So one way to do that is to use nga, no? Pero gusto ko sana ma-establish ko ito na itong sine ay para itong this one, no? Kasi sine of the sine inverse, it's just of x, it's just equal to x. My x here is 0.4. So therefore, the answer using this cancellation method, I'll name it as cancellation because of this property. Kung yan pala ay sine of the sine inverse of x, lalagay mo lang yan doon. No? Kung yung x mo, ilalagay mo lang doon. So in this case, kung 0.4 yan, so therefore the answer is 0.4. And we verify that using our calculator. Napakahalaga nitong property na na-discover kanina. No? And sometimes some teachers will just neglect it. Pero in solving some problems in trigonometric, napaka-useful niya. But make sure, if it's sine inverse 0.4, if you want to, I want to establish now that the sine of the sine inverse of x is equal to x, provided that your x should be ranging from -1 to 1. Now, result din ang ginawa ko kanina sa graph ng mga function ng f inverse, na yan ang kanyang range, no, ng sine inverse. That's the domain of the sine inverse. Yan, establish ko yan kanina. And then another, yung property na isa pa, no, I can make it also sine inverse of sine x. Dapat sagot din dyan ay equal. Provided na ang x mo dyan, dapat ranging dun siya sa pi over 2, negative pi over 2. So, in between. So, ito ay na-establish kanina and we are using that. So, since 0.4 is between the domain, no? 0.4 is between 1 and -1. So, I can use this property. Na hindi ko na siya isosolve. Let's call it titig method na lang, no? Tititigan mo na lang and then yan na yung sagot. Because it is found in the interval of the domain. Napakahalaga ng domain. Pag ito naging 2.4, let's say sine inverse 2.4, the calcu magrereklamo, no? Mag-i-error siya. Because 2.4, it's not in the interval. Ito, gusto ko itong ine-emphasize sa bata. No? Why is that 0.4 is 0.4? The answer is 0. Why is that 2.4? It's an error or undefined. Because it is outside the domain of the sine inverse. Wherein we did that a while ago because we restrict nga the domain eh. Kaya lahat ng lagpas, no, or beyond the range, which is -1 to 1, ang calcu magreklamo. So let's try that. Verify ko lang. Suppose this will be 2.4. 2.4. The calcu will say error. Okay? And another thing that I want to establish here, so let's proceed to, okay, paano nga ba yun? Okay, I'll go to table. I'll use the table na lang. So there is a function, ano dyan, table 9. So suppose I'll use sine inverse of x. Sine inverse of x. So if I'm going to use variable x, I'll use alpha and then x. Yeah. And then may table. So let's say negative 5 to 5. So ranging from negative 5 to 5. Masusurprise kayo kasi error siya at negative 5. So at error siya sa 0, okay siya kasi 0 is between the domain. Yung 1 meron siyang value, sa 2 nag-error, pero kunyari nilagay ko diyan ay so sa file lahat na error na kasi those values are beyond. So pero pag nagtungtong siya ng negative 1, it is found in the range, in the domain, so therefore may value siya. Sa 0 may value siya. So, sa 1, meron siya. Pero pag nag-2, 3 onwards, ayaw na ni calculus. Because, how are you going to show that or explain that to your class? You tell them, but because of the domain, no? Yung territory ng graph ng sine inverse, starting lang siya sa negative 1 to 1. And then, the calculator will also verify that. So, yun yung maganda, no? Kapag na-discuss mo yung graph, napaka-particular mo sa graph, and then your graph will guarantee or depend you to those questions given by your students. Okay? So that's why 0.4 here is correct. So next is this one. Sine inverse. This is another problem wherein I can use the property. So, sabi ganon, sine inverse. Ulit-ulit ako ha, gusto ko yung ganon para maano ninyo, yung sine x na yan is equal to x. Provided x is, so this is sine x, no? Ang domain ng sine x sa sine inverse ay negative pi over 2 to negative pi over 2. Yan. So, dapat itong pi over 6 is that pi over 6 to come up na igaganon ko na lang siya pa. Ganun lang pala yan. Ilalagay ko na lang. To come up with that, provided mo dapat, no? That the angle should be between negative pi over 2 to pi over 2 or simply located siya kasi ito na, isa rin itong nakakalito sa mga teacher and even lalo na sa bata. So, yung pi over 2, yan dito siya. Negative pi over 2, andito siya, no? Baka, kasi the movement, we're referring here to the movement. Positive, okay? And then counterclockwise, negative siya. Okay? So, located at quadrant 1 and quadrant 4. So, dapat the angle that is applicable or allowable here should come from quadrant 1 and quadrant 4 only. Pag nakita mo sa 2 and 3, hindi siya po pwede, mag-error uli siya. Now, my question is pi over 6 between negative pi over 2 and pi over 2? Is it true? Yes. So, therefore, pi over 6 is between, kasi it's here, no? Nandito siya. Pi over 6 is located here. It's 30 degrees. Okay, it's there. So therefore, it is between quadrant 1 and quadrant 4. So therefore, we satisfy this condition. And if you satisfy this condition, you can just do this shortcut or the cancellation method. So therefore, the answer here is pi over 6. Okay? Ganun lang. Hindi na tayo effort pa, no? Titig method lang, as I said a while ago. So, here, I'll verify if our answer is correct. So, sine inverse, so shift sine inverse of the sine. This is one thing good in Casio, no? The natural display effect. Whatever it is written on the paper, you can write it the same in the monitor of the calculator. So, yan, no? Shift pi. And then yung aking 6 ay, yan. Okay. And then here, let's try kung ang sagot niya ay pi over 6. Okay, good. So it's pi over 6. Because pi over 6 is within the range of the domain of the sine x. Okay? After doing the restricting the domain. Yun yung naging result. Okay, let's move to another problem, the 2 pi over 3. In this case, if my attempt is to use again this, let's say I have another attempt. This looks familiar. I think I can use the sine, the cancellation, the property that we established. Yan, igaganunin ko lang naman. So therefore, my answer here is 2 pi over 3. Oh, is that correct? So I think you are in trouble if that's your answer. The sine inverse of sine 2 pi over 3 is not equal to 2 pi over 3 because dito ka na lang naniwala sa property na to, which is not good, no? You should be very careful with this. Extra caution lang talaga tayo dito because there is a condition again that the x should be located only in quadrant 1 and 4. So paulit-ulit mo yan lalagay sa bata. Negative pi over 2. Because 2 pi over 3, since 2 pi over 3 is not found in quadrant 3, quadrant 1 and 4, so therefore, this is not 2 pi over 3. Okay? So, hindi yan ang tamang sagot. So, paano yun? But there is a chance, no? The calculator, let's try in calculator. In calculator, the calculator will give us, I think calculator 2 pi, and then 3. The calculator, the answer is pi over 3, ang layo. So, paano yun? So, we have to make a way from that. So, paano ito? So, one way to do that is to get the sine 2 pi over 3. 2 pi over 3, where is that? 2 pi over 3, it is located, so since it's not located in quadrant 1, it's located in, so I will establish this first. Located in quadrant 2, okay, family of 60, 120 degrees yan. So, nasa 120 degrees. So, kung yan ay, ito, kung sine ng 120, alam natin ang sine 120 degrees ay square root of 3, square root of 3 over 2. So, para na nating sinabi na ito ay sine inverse of sine, square root of 3. Sine inverse of square root of 3. So, para pala yung sine inverse of square root of 3. At alam natin na this is an angle. We know that when you say sine inverse, you are solving for an angle. An angle. So, itong sine inverse na yan, madali na lang. Pero ang gusto ko sana, ma-establish in solving this, do not attempt na, sasabihin mo na lang, ayan ay kasi ganito yan classes, the sine inverse square root of 3, that is actually the same as sine theta, bigla na lang nila sinusulat to. Yan, ganyan. Ganyan may mga teacher na ganyan yan. That's the meaning of that class. Sine inverse, yan, almost the same, which is correct naman. Pero, gusto ko sana, ina-apply pa rin yung property. I'll get the sine class of both sides. So, sine of sine inverse square root of 3 equals sine theta. Tapos, looks familiar. This is the same as square root of 3 because of this property. This property. No? Looks familiar. So, hindi nabibigla yung bata. They know the story behind that. So, yan yung na-establish mo na. No? So, kailan ang sine theta square root of 3? Sine inverse, teka lang. Sine square root of 3 over 2 pala. No? Sorry. Yan. May over 2 pala. Okay. Kailan yan? That will only happen, basically, square root of 3 over 2. It will happen in quadrant 1 and quadrant 2. No? Yung positive na yan. Kasi, family of 60 yan, ano? So, I'll just erase this. Kunyari, 60 degrees. This is pi over 3. And then the other one here, it's 2 pi over 3. Nandito yan at nandito, no? Ito, positive dito si square root of 3 over 2. Okay? Tapos ito rin, positive pa rin naman si square root of 3 over 2. So, 1/2. I think this is sine 1 over square root. So, yung kanyang sign, tama naman, sign niya, parehong positive. Pero pipili ka. Ang sabi ng sign, ang domain niya ay nasa quadrant 1 and 4 lang. So, mananalo talaga si pi over 3. Matatalo si 2 pi over 3. That's kasi, pasok pa rin siya sa domain, no? Sa domain niya na in quadrant negative pi over 2 to pi over 2. So, therefore, the theta that we are looking here, the answer should be pi over 3. So that's one way to discuss this to your class. Now, wag manatili dun sa property. Okay, be careful with that. Another, this one, the cosine. We know that cosine inverse again, it is, this one, it is, if I'll change this to decimal, it is negative 0.866. Okay? And then going back to cosine, the property of cosine, the cosine inverse of x. Okay? Diba we know that the theta here, the theta should be ranging from 1 to negative 1. Na-establish ko na naman yan kanina. Okay? And then, dyan tayo huhugot ulit. Okay? Yang bang negative 0.866 nasa pagitan nito? Okay. Nasa pagitan siya. Okay, correct. And then, but we're after the angle here. So we're after the angle. So this is an angle. So I can make it, kasi the meaning of this is you are getting the angle. So the meaning, you have to solve the angle. So I'll use the property. So the property, you solve for cosine. And then the meaning of this, since pasok siya sa range, so I can use the property. This can be negative square root of 3 over 2. So which is cosine theta. So, cosine theta siya. Okay? And then, the angle here should be, kailan daw, anong angle, ang sagot ay negative square root of 3 over 2. Kasi, one way to do this, ang ginagawa natin, ginagawa ko, alam ko na ang cosine ay negative. Negative ang cosine sa quadrant 2 at quadrant. Nag-check ako. Ganyan ang ginagawa ko. Quadrant 3 and yan. Tapos alam ko na ang cosine, ang domain ng cosine doon sa ginawa ko kanina mga graph ay 0 to pi. Kung 0 to pi siya, di ba that's the domain. Kung 0 to pi ang domain ng cosine, dapat quadrant 1 lang siya. quadrant 1 at saka quadrant 2. So yung may dalawang check, dyan mo dapat kukunin yung angle. Hindi mo dapat kukunin dun sa mga walang dalawang check. Yung intersection nila na tinatawag. So nandito si angle. No? Nagtatago siya dyan. Sino siya? Sino yung angle na yan? This is square root of 3 over 2. Isa pa palang gusto ko i-share yung technique ko, no? Para hindi ako nalilito. Yung 1 square root of 1 square root of 3. Wala. Kasi nalilito ko dyan nung ako'y nag-aaral, yung value niya. So 1 square root of 3. Tinuturo ko na to sa mga 1 square root of 3, square root of 3, 1, 2. Ito yung sine of pi over, family of 30, so 6. Tapos pi over 3 to, 60 degrees. Ito yung 30 degrees, 60 degrees. Tapos sa kanya naman sa 45 degrees, 1 square root of 2, pi over 4 naman yan. Okay? Pi over 4. This is 45 degrees. So, pag ganun yung arrow, sine yan. Sine 30 is 1 over 2. Pag cosine, ganyan yung arrow. Cosine 30, square root of 3 over 2. Okay? Pag naman ganito yung arrow, pag ganon, that is tangent. Pag ni-reverse ko yung arrow, nagiging reciprocal. So, pag sinabi kong cosecant 30, 2 over 1. Pag sinabi kong cotangent 30, square root of 3 over 1. So, ganun lang, no? Ito naman sa 45. Sine 45, it is sine 1 over square root of 2. Pag cosine, yan. Pag tangent, pag ganun. Yan lang yung magic number ko na tinatandaan. So, kung ito ay square root of 3 over 2, yay cosine, so sine, ito siya, no? So, family of 30 degrees. So, therefore, meron ka ditong pi over 3, tapos nandito, ang isang family niyan, family of so, sorry, 60 degree, 30 degrees pala, no? So 6. Nandito ngayon yung 5 pi over 6. Kasi negative siya, no? Nandito siya. At sabi sa intersection, dito mo lang dapat kukunin yung angle. So the angle here should be 5 pi over 6. We will not get the pi over 6. Why? Because you still again follow the domain. The domain should be ranging from 0 to pi. Oo nga. Pero the cosine is negative in quadrant 2. Or simply do the checklist, itong intersection. Okay? So that will help you. Next is the cosine inverse of pi over 8. That is another problem that we have to solve. So, hindi mo to pwedeng sabihin na, kasi yung pi over 8, if you change this to decimal, this is 22.5 degrees. That is the degree form of the Trajan. So, ang hirap, no? We need to calculate. We need to get we need to use the calculator. 22.5. So, para pa siyang naging half an angle ng 45 degrees. So, to do that, since we want to follow again this concept, cosine, gusto ko sana maging ganito siya, no? Itsura niya, cosine. Tapos ito, in the form of cosine din. Okay? Para pag naging ganyan ang itsura, pwede ko nang i-apply yung cancellation na ganyan. Provided that your x should be ranging from 0 to pi again. Pero paano ko ito ma-achieve? Paano ko yan ma-achieve? na itong sine pi over 8 can be transformed into cosine in terms of cosine. So I will recall my knowledge during or maybe some series ng trigon natin with my colleagues, no? Sila Mark and Sir Chip, si Reverie, marami na nagtrigo eh. Yung co-function identity, na-discuss nila to, ay nanood ako noon. So yung co-function that the sine x is equal to cosine pi over 2 minus x. I think Mark Vidalio discussed this, the co-function. And then, I'll use this, no? Na yung sine, kaya ko siyang i-transform ng ganito so that I will achieve this property. So that even if I will not use calculator, I can still have a value for this. No, I can have an answer for this problem. And then later, we will verify this. How come yung calcu na Casio, ginawa niyang ganyan, ano? So, pero bago yan, siguro some of you nagtataka dito sa co-function. Kung ito yung x, ito yung pi over 2x. Pi over 2x. Yan. So, using ko lang yung drawing ko. So, kung ito yung triangle, and then, yan. So, ito yung pi over 2x minus x pala, then this is my x. And then, kunyari, ito yung x ko, ito yung y ko, tapos yung hypotenuse ko r. Pag kinumpute ko yung sine x, ang sagot ay y over r. Pag kinumpute ko yung cosine pi over 2 minus x, ang sagot pa rin dyan ay y over r. So, laging equal, no? Yung y over r equal. So, therefore, kung yung y over r equal, ito rin pala ay equal. So, na-establish mo to. Yan. Yan magandang ipakita sa bata. Yan. Para hindi nagugulat. Okay. So, therefore, yung sine, I'll use this now. This will be my, basis. The sine pi over 8 can now be expressed pala as cosine pi over 2 minus pi over 8. Yan. Which is, if I solve the right side, it can be 3 pi, by 4 no? So kung for same, 4 pi over 8 minus pi over 8. So therefore, this is cosine 3 pi over 8. So yan, no? Yung sine pi over 8 pala ay pwede siyang cosine 3 pi over 8. This is a good result. So therefore, I can say now na itong problem, yung cosine na to, ito pala ay po pwedeng isulat ng cosine inverse, cosine 3 pi over 8. Itong sine pi over 8 ay equal lang naman dito. So therefore, the answer here is 3 pi over 8. Kasi 3 pi over 8 is between 0 to pi. So therefore, I did not use calcu, but I want to verify if my answer is correct. So, tingnan natin. At least you have a chance to solve it manually. So, don't lose hope na hindi mo na siya masasolve. So, cosine inverse, and then sine, shift, sine in, sine lang pala. Sine, then fraction, shift of pi over 8, and then close parentheses. Yan, so the answer should be 3 pi over 8. Yan, good. So, I'm showing you the manual solution using the concept of the domain and the range, and then the calculator will verify. Okay? Technology, yun naman ang use ng technology. Do not depend on technology. If you depend on technology, magiging mahina si teacher. Mapapabayaan niya yung concept niya. Kasi nakadepende na lang siya sa technology. What if wala ang technology? How are you going to solve problems like this? Yun yung dilemma ng mga teacher. Okay? Next is here. I'll erase some portion of my slides. So medyo... by the way, I'm using my view board as my canvas. So ito ay medyo okay siya, no? Maganda rin siya. I'm using my view board, and then you can erase some portion. Bibilugan nyo lang siya. Select those. Okay. So I will solve now this problem. Okay. This is an angle again. This is an angle. Okay. Cosine inverse is an angle. And then that angle should be 1. Negative 1 to 1. Yan, umulit ko na naman, ano? That's the ring. That's the restriction of the cosine inverse. Negative 1, no? That's the domain. So therefore, I'll use the property, no, of this cosine inverse 3 - 3/4 is a theta. But theta should be within that range. Okay, and then I'll use the property. I'll get the cosine, and then cancellation. -3/4 is between that. Okay, between -1 to 1. So therefore, I can say 3/4 here. Then cosine theta. Then cosine theta becomes -3/4. Parang mahirap yun. Si special angle, wala yata. Bihira yun. No? So, I cannot use 60 degrees, 30, family of 30, family of 60, family of 45 degrees. 0.75 eh. So, it's not special. So, therefore, I use now yung mga drawing ng triangle. So, this is the time you draw triangle. So, in doing the triangle, kapag gano'n ang case, hindi na siya special yung value, you draw a triangle this time. If I let this as cosine, as theta, cosine is adjacent, so 3 hypotenuse. But, ayan na naman, I'll use the checklist. Ang cosine ko ay negative, kailan? Ang cosine ko ay negative sa quadrant 2 at quadrant 3. Okay? And then, ang cosine, ang kanyang range ay 0 to pi. 0 to pi. So, punta ka dito. 0 to pi. Yan. Yung meron dalawa, dyan na dapat makukuha ang angle. Or the value of the cosine should, or the value of sine or cosine should be found here only in quadrant 2. Wala ka ng iba pang kukunan. No? You do the checklist. So therefore, if I will solve for sine theta, kasi that's the problem mo, sine theta, this is theta eh. So para lang sinabi na sine theta. So I will solve sine theta out of my triangle. Sine theta. So 3, 4, hindi ko pwedeng gawing ano to ha, 5. Hindi ito Pythagorean triple na the 3, dapat this 4 should be in the other leg. So be careful with that. So this will turn out into Pythagorean Theorem. 4 squared, 3 squared, plus x squared. If you let this as x, so x squared becomes 16 minus 9, 7. The answer will be plus minus square root of 7. Yan. Nilagay ko yung plus minus para ma-emphasize ko yung na ang x ay positive ba o kukunin mo ba ang negative? Since dito sa binilugan mo, you are located at quadrant 2, your x there should be negative. Your x there should be negative, tama. So, I'll get the negative. Okay? Pero, ang kailangan ko sine eh. So, the sine, so suppose this is the side square root of 7. Ang sine ko dyan, ang sine sa quadrant 2 ay positive. So, if I'm going to solve sine theta using this triangle, it will be square root of opposite over hypotenuse, square root of 7 over 4. So, that's the answer. So, therefore, the sine theta is equivalent to square root of 7 over 4. Okay? I think we're done with this. Move tayo. Yeah, mga tangent naman. In the tangent, this is a theta again. So, this is theta. Yan, this is theta. And then that theta, na-discover natin a while ago, na dapat nasa negative pi over 2, pi over 2. Yan. Madali mo na siya sinasabi kasi ginawa mo siya talaga kanina. Pero kung hindi mo yan tinuro sa bata, wala kang karapatang sabihin yan ng bigla-bigla. No? Dapat scaffolding ang method. So, yan. So, I'll use again this. So, I have now the ability to establish this kasi nasabi ko naman na to. But make sure x should be element of all real numbers. Okay. Yan, na-establish ko rin yan kanina. Okay. And then, so if I'm going to solve that, so tangent inverse square root of 3 equals an angle. So that's the angle. So I'll use tangent, both sides. So cancellation method. So square root of 3 is between, okay? So tangent, square root of 3 is element of all reals. So therefore, this is all square root of 3. Kaya kayang kunin ng tangent 100. Tangent inverse of 100, okay lang yan. Tangent inverse of 1 million, okay lang yan. Tangent inverse of 2 million, kaya yan. Kasi all reals eh. Lahat kayang tanggapin ni tangent inverse. Okay? Kasi sa graph niya, all reals nga naman yung kanyang domain. So, lahat ng value kaya niyang kunin. So, kaya kung square root of 3, square root of 3 ang sagot. So, tangent theta. Okay? And then, tangent theta is square root of 3. So, therefore, very special naman yung value, no? Kailan ang tangent theta square root of 3? So, tangent square root of 3. So, ito ay family of, I'll use again yung may magic number a while ago. Naaalala niyo yung value ko kanina yung, this is family of 60 degrees. So, square root of 3, 1, 2. Ito yung sine. Yan yung sine. Cosine. Ito tangent. This is in the family of pi over 3. Okay? Si tangent, gawa akong checklist. Si tangent, ang kanyang ay quadrant 1 at quadrant 4. Okay? Tapos, quadrant 1 and quadrant 4. Tapos, since ang tangent ko ay positive, kailan ang tangent positive? Positive lang ang tangent sa quadrant 1 at quadrant 3. Ito yung may bilog. So, therefore, nandito si angle. Dito mo siya matatagpuan. Sino siya? Siya si pi over 3. So, therefore, the answer here is pi over 3. Yan, ganyan siya sinusolve, no? Hindi ako gumawa ng triangle kasi napaka-special ng value ng square root of 3. Makikita ko siya dun sa mga magic number ko. Kanina, 3/4.75, wala siya dun sa mga magic number. So, I will use the power of the triangle. Okay? Again, this one. This is 1/2. Sine inverse, cosine of the sine inverse of 1/2. Special angle, special value uli ito. So therefore, madali na lang siya. Okay? And then, this is an angle. So it seems na we are solving here a cosine theta. Para siyang cosine theta. But provided that the theta there, this here, that theta should be, again, paulit-ulit to, pi over 2, negative pi over 2. Okay? Nasa quadrant 1 and 2. And then I will solve that. The sine inverse of 1/2 is a theta. So, sine again, sine. So, 1/2 is between negative 1 to 1. So, I can use the property. So, sine theta is 1/2. Wow, very good. Madali na lang pala. So, sine theta is 1/2. Alam natin yan kung kailan ang sine theta 1/2. It's located in pi over 6. The theta here is pi over 6. And, pasok pa rin siya sa range na yon. Pi over 6 is between negative pi over 2 and pi over 2. So, pasok pa rin talaga siya. So, therefore, cosine of pi over 6 is what? Pi over 6, family of pi over 6. Ang pi over 6, ang family niya, ang magic number niya ay 1, square root of 3, 2. Ang cosine, pag ganon. Sine ito eh. Ang cosine yan. It's the cosine. Square root of 3 over 2. So therefore, kung square root of 3 over 2, sagot dyan ay square root of 3 over 2. Yan. Okay. 2/3. Again, this is not a special value. 2/3 is not a special value. And let me verify first the answer here. Cosine using my calculator. So, baka mali eh. Cosine. So, cosine of the sine inverse. Cosine of the sine inverse are 1/2. So, 1/2. 1/2. Okay. Sorry. Yeah, the answer there should be square root of 3 over 2. Okay, good. So next is this one, sine inverse 2/3. So this is not special, so I'll solve this sine 2/3. So it means I'll draw a triangle here. 2/3 is a theta. We all know this is a theta. Okay, and then I'll compute that. Sine. So, cancellation, 2/3 ay between naman siya negative 1 to 1, so sine theta. And then, I'll draw a triangle here. So, kung ito yung theta ko, 2 dito, ito yung 3. So, gawin natin yung kanding Petagorian Theorem. So, 3 squared plus 2 squared equals x squared. So, x will be 9 minus pala. Sorry. So, this should be this should be 3 squared minus. So, 9 minus 4, it's 5. So, x will be, this will be square root of 5. Okay. So, yan, no? And then, tangent. So, I will compute the tangent theta there out of the triangle. So, tangent will be opposite to 2 over square root of 5. Okay. So, the answer should be 2 over square root of 5. Okay. That's correct. Okay, next. I'll use the calcu. Let me verify. So, tangent. So, tangent of the sine inverse 2/3. 2/3. Okay. So 0.8. So that's I think that's the decimal number of 2/0.5. Okay. So we'll move to another problem, tangent. So this one, 2 tangent inverse. So dito na yata tayo. Malapit na tayo magtapos. So this is a theta again. This is a theta. And then if it's a theta, I can make this a tangent inverse of -4/3. And then use the property, equals the theta. So -4/3 to. Mabilis masyado yung step. So may na-miss ako. So I'll use, this will be, yes, sige. Tangent theta. And then applying here, it will be -4/3. Okay? -4/3 is not special. Okay? So I'll draw a triangle. So if this is my theta, here is 4, this is 3. Ano na to, no? So ang ating 4 squared plus 3 squared. 16 plus 9, 25. So this is 5. Okay? So alam natin na can take all real numbers ang tangent, ano? That the tangent of the tangent inverse of x is x. X is all real numbers. Okay? Establish ko lang yan. And then, ang tangent to theta, parang sine, this is similar to sine to theta, sine to theta. And alam natin to, na-discuss to nila Sir Lambert, Sir Mark, Sir Chip, lahat na trigonometry. So 2 sine u, 2 sine cosine theta. Yan. Gusto ko lang malaman, nasaan yung angle? So, saan ko? Kaya gagawa akong checklist. Tangent is negative here. Ano no? Tangent is negative, quadrant 2 and quadrant 4. And then, the domain of tangent is there. So, nandito siya. So, therefore, the theta should be found or element of quadrant 3. Nasa quadrant 3 siya dapat. So, kung quadrant 3, dapat lahat ang sine value mo ay nasa quadrant 3 din. Ano ba ang sine theta using this in quadrant 3? Ang sine sa quadrant 3 ay negative. So, dapat -4/5. So, be careful ka doon. Okay? And then, yung cosine sa quadrant 3, positive, 3/5. So the answer here, it should be -24/25. Yan. Yan ay nagawa mo because of your checklist. No? This is very important for me. No? As a student, as a teacher, this is my method para maintindihan ng bata na bakit hindi yung negative, hindi yung positive kinukuha, bakit yung positive, ganun, something like that. Okay? Here, we will simplify this. Kailan kaya ito mangyayari, no? Na yan ay equal, no? So this will only happen when, no? Yan. Na yung cosine, parang looks familiar. Co-function ito, no? Na yung sine nagiging equal sa cosine using their angle. So kung co-function yan, medyo madali na natin masasolve, no? So, kung ito ay theta, ito ay pi/2 minus theta. Okay? And then, suppose this is x, this is y. Kasi kung sine, cosine yan, parang y/1. So, 1 to, for sure. Kasi, kung cosine inverse of y ay theta, so therefore, kapag in-apply ko yung property, cosine, this is y, cosine theta. So, para na siyang y over 1 cosine. Eh, adjacent over hypotenuse. So, therefore, the hypotenuse is 1. So, 1 yan. Okay. I'll compute now the sine. So, I'll compute now the sine. Compute ko ang cosine pala. Sorry, ang cosine. Sine muna. Sine theta. It is y opposite over hypotenuse. So, y over 1. Samantalang ang cosine pi over 2 minus theta, it is still y over 1. Okay, nag-equal. And then the sine inverse, so theta is equal to sine inverse of y. Here, pi over 2 minus theta is equivalent to sine, equivalent to siya sa, ayan, tama, sine inverse, cosine pala, sorry. Cosine inverse y. O yan, looks familiar na to, no? Ito, tsaka to, ay andito. So, ibig sabihin, ito pala ay theta. Ito ay theta, kasi, pi over 2 theta minus theta. Ito palang cosine inverse y ay pi over 2 minus theta plus, ito palang sine inverse y ay theta. So, pag sinolve ko, pi over 2 theta plus theta, cancel, the answer will be pi over 2. Yan. Okay? This is just a simplification, no? We will not use calculator here. So, nakita niyo yung gradual change from solving and then now simplification. So, this is another interesting problem na bihira naman nating nadidiscuss, yung finding the inverse. So, I'll solve this problem. So, using our concept of inverse function. Diba, in inverse function, we interchange the input and the output. The y becomes x, the x becomes y. Yung y natin will becomes x, and then yung x natin will become y. So, magiging sine y plus 2. And then after doing that, sinasabi natin sa bata, okay, solve for y. This is the dilemma. Paano mo ito isosolve ang y? May trigonometric function. So, paano ito? So, sine, tanggalin ko na lang ang square root. Okay? Doon mo ngayon i-apply yung tinuro ng teacher. Kung tinuro ni teacher, yung property, no? Na apply the sine inverse. Okay? Kung tinuro ni teacher itong property ng cancellation ng sine inverse of x, sine inverse, yung sine square root of y plus 2. And this looks familiar. Kanina pa natin yan nakikita. Ito palang sine inverse, ito lang ay equivalent sa y plus 2. Yun, natanggal na yung argument na yung trigonometric function is sine. So, natanggal na lang y plus 2. So, because of the operator na getting the sine inverse on both sides, na kung yan ay hindi na ituro, no? So, magiging problem ito sa bata. Baka tanggalin na lang yung radical symbol. Okay, and then we can now solve for y. So, by squaring both sides. So, magiging sine inverse x squared and then y plus 2. So, your y becomes like this. Sine inverse of x squared minus 2, which is, this is equivalent to your f inverse of x. Okay? So, therefore, this is the f inverse of x. Okay? To have more example, so let's have, again, change y to x and x to y here. So, y, x, sine square root of y plus 2. Okay? And then, yeah, anong operator ko? I'll get the sine inverse again. I'll transfer first, addition property, x minus 2 sine square root of y. Yan. And then, I'll get the sine inverse of both sides. So, sine inverse x minus 2. This is sine inverse of the sine square root of y. Looks family again. Looks familiar. Looks family. Yan yung sabi ko sa mga bata ko nun. Looks family. So this is the square root of y and then sine inverse x minus 2. Then you can now solve for y. So squaring. So you will have here sine inverse x minus 2 square. And then answer is 1. So this is your f inverse of x. Okay. So we're done with that. Okay. So bago pala ako magsimula ay mag-ano ng graph ng mga secant kung may time pa. So don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel, the Lee Institute. Although napabayaan ko to for how many months. So soon mag-upload ako ng aking mga videos about the different topics based on the melts. Okay? So, tingnan natin yung, we still have 5 minutes. So, I'll move to cosecant. And the cosecant, alam ko na ang cosecant ay graph nito ay galing lang naman sa sine. Iti-trace back ko lang si sine. Kasi yun yung pinagmulan niya. Trace back ko si sine. Yan. Okay, tapos alam mo na yung kanyang mga bawal ay 0. Ayaw niya rin ito. So, pi. So, pi, ayaw niya yung mga family of pi or n pi. Ayaw niya yung mga k pi. Okay? And then, how are you going to make this one-to-one? So, gagayahin na naman natin ginawa natin kanina. To make it one-to-one, we will remove some portion. So, we'll remove there. So, we can make it one-to-one. Okay? So, nag-start siya sa negative, positive pi over 2. Okay? And then, syempre here, negative pi over 2. So, negative 1, ito ay 1. So, ito rin, buburahin ko na rin siya. Wala na rin tong portion na to to make it one-to-one. Okay? So, yan yung graph, no? So, dito, originally, pag binura ko yung kanyang, para makita natin ng ano na talagang symmetric, ito, buburahin ko, yan lang yung portion. So, sana ganito tayo sa bata, no? Kahit online, parang manual kang nagbubura sa pisara. Okay? Para lang mapakita ko na gusto ko kasi masabi na symmetric pa rin siya talaga sa line y equals x. Okay? And then, syempre magbabago ang kanilang mga dominant range. No? So, dito, yung aking green color, yun yung original, no? So, here, magiging pi over 2 na to. So, yun yung asymptote, pi pala. pi over 2. Nag-start kasi siya ng pi over 2, no? So, kung siya ang domain, so lagay ko na dito ang f of x and then the f inverse of x. So, cosecant x, cosecant inverse of x. So, ang domain nito, base sa figure, negative pi over 2 hanggang pi over 2 lang. So, negative pi over 2 hanggang pi over 2. Pero, in between, ayaw niya tong line na to, tong x equals 0. So, except ko yung 0. That's the domain. And then, yung range niya, ayun, yung negative infinity, negative 1, union, titig method lang to, mata lang tinitignan ko, yung figure lang, 1 to positive infinity. And then, establish mo again yung interchange. Interchange ko lang. So, magiging dito na siya, negative 1, union, 1 to positive infinity. Tapos, ito naman, negative pi over 2, pi over 2, except the 0. Except 0. Okay, that's cosecant. Okay? So, I think we're done muna dito. We will stop at cosecant, pero kung gusto niyo pa ang secant, paano puputulin ang secant? Teka lang ha, putulin ko ang secant. Paano siya re-restrict? Ang secant, restrict natin mula, yan, to make it 1 to 1. So, mula dyan. Tapos, yan. So, pero ito ay trace lang ni cosine. Ni cosine siya, no? Yan, ganyan siya. So, 1, negative 1, and then, ayaw niya itong pi over 2. Ayaw ni cosecant ang pi over 2. Ni secant ang pi over 2. Okay? So, makikita ang domain natin ay nag-start lang ng 0 to pi. So, ang secant, f of x, tapos ang f inverse of x, secant inverse, ito ay 0 to pi. Base sa figure. 0 hanggang, kasi pi 2 eh. Pero, ayaw niya nga ng pi, pero except yung asymptote, itong vertical. Kasi 0 to pi siya, pero ito ay hindi po pwede. So, lagyan mo ng restriction yan. Negative pi over 2. Yan. Let me erase this. Yan. Yan. And then, ang range niya ay ganun din, ano? Negative infinity, negative 1, union, 1 to positive infinity. And then, interchange ulit. Okay? So, interchange, negative infinity, negative 1, union, 1 to positive infinity, and then 0 to pi, close, except the horizontal, vertical asymptote, pi over 2. Yan. And then tangent, cotangent. So based on the graph then, cotangent, para lang siyang, ang cotangent ay 0 to pi, ayaw niya ng mga family of pi din. Para siyang si cosecant. Yan. Ayaw niya kasi nag-error siya dyan. So therefore, hahatiin natin siya. Re-restrict ko siya, tatanggalin ko tong portion na to. Yan. So, pag tinanggal mo siya, so magiging 0 to pi na lang. So, 0 to pi. So, ang ano natin ay pi to. Yan yung kanyang horizontal asymptote ng dati ay vertical. Ito rin. So therefore, ang domain nito, lagay ko na lang dito ang domain. Ang domain nito ay 0 to pi. Pero ayaw nga niya yon, so dapat naka-open. And then, ang range nito ay all reals. And then, that's the f of x. Yung f inverse of x, interchange lang. All reals, and then 0 to pi. Okay? I think natapos ko na ang lecture about the inverse trigonometric function. So, I hope na naintindihan at natutunan ang inverse trigonometric function ng pre-calculus week 6 to 8. So, we're done and we have illustrated the domain and range and the use of the properties ng inverse trig, no, in solving or evaluating some inverse trigonometric expressions. Okay? Thank you.
Michael sa kanyang audio. And to continue our discussion, let us call on our Casio Educational Unit Head, Mr. Joel Serrano. Good morning, Sir Joel.
Hi, good morning, Sir Buddy.
Yan. Good
Kamusta
morning,
ka?
sir. Okay naman, sir. Medyo nagkaka-problem lang yata si Sir Michael sa ating audio. Babalikan natin si Sir Michael.
Yeah. Maraming problema.
Alam ko, Sir Joel, meron kang gusto sabihin sa ating mga viewers ngayong araw. So, let us all welcome our Casio Educational Unit Head, Mr. Joel Serrano.
Hi, everyone. Thank you to Mr. Lee for that very wonderful presentation and very informative presentation. I'd like to say thank you to the DepEd ETU department led by Sir Anthony, Mark Anthony C, for Sir Buddy na laging nandyan for us, sila Ma'am Weng, and the rest of the hardworking men and women. Si Director Abram, maraming salamat din pala. Oo, no. And by the way, Sir Buddy, kasi marami nagtatanong sa amin yung bago naming colored na calculator.
Yes po.
So, I like to show it to everybody yung bagong color ng aming Casio 991EX. It's pink colored already. So, ito yung actual unit. So, it's already out in the market by the online platform, no, through Lazada and through Shopee, yung aming mga authorized selling sellers dun sa nabanggit ko na pages, no. So yun, maraming salamat and see you next week ulit for another wonderful presentation. Meron kami ulit na in-invite na isang Casio senior technical teacher naman this time.
Ayan. So thank you, Sir Joel. And siguro balik muna natin sa screen ng ating resource speaker, Sir Michael Lee.
Hello,
Sir Michael. Sir Michael, marami nagtatanong dun sa ginamit mo na application kanina bukod dun sa Emulator. Yung sinulatan mo, ano ba yung application na yun, sir?
Yun ay yung Amani View Board. Free naman siya.
So, ayun.
Pen tablet.
So, ang viewboard na yun ay na-discuss na rin po natin dito sa EdTech unit. Isa sa mga kagamitan. Pero ngayon po, our topic is more on integration of Casio emulators or Casio calculators sa ating discussion. Ang primary focus po is the use of calculators, specifically Casio calculators. So again, viewboard and ViewSonic daw po ang ginamit ni Sir Michael Lee. So, Sir, alam ko meron tayong mga special guest ngayong araw. Unahin na natin our first special guest.
Sino?
Ayan, sino kaya?
Secret.
Sir, may hula ka ba, Sir Michael?
Sino mga may guest pa?
Yes. Ang una po nating guest speaker is a teacher from San Ildefonso National High School. Let us welcome Miss Ray Reyes. Okay, ma'am, paayos lang po ng cam sandali. Yan, hintayin lang natin si ma'am. Hello, Ma'am Ray.
Ay, hello,
Hello.
po.
Ayan,
Hello,
hello, ma'am.
Ma'am.
Lahat. Hello
So-
po sa ating yun. So, sobrang productive at sobrang ganda ng discussion talaga ni Sir Michael, no? Talagang magagamit namin mga teachers. So, gusto ko lang i-commend din yung speakers kasi sobrang galing talaga, sobrang detailed. And kung talagang math teacher ka, very specific ka sa mga details na dapat di ma-miss ng mga students mo. So, napakita ni Sir Michael lahat. Tapos, ang gusto ko dun sa ginagawa niya is yung paulit-ulit talaga. Sabi nga niya kanina, okay lang paulit-ulit, okay lang makulit kasi that way, we can establish yung concepts dun sa mga
Yes.
students. So, sobrang galing nun. Parang ginagawa ko rin kasi yun sa classroom ko kapag nag-discuss ako. Especially kapag math, kailangan talaga makulit tayo, kailangan talaga paulit-ulit tayo. Saka ang dami ng concepts, techniques, saka yung mga properties na talagang sobrang importante na malaman ng mga students, especially ng teachers. Kasi sabi nga, we cannot give what we do not have. So, kailangan ma-equip natin yung mga sarili natin sa mga necessary knowledge and skills na kakailanganin natin sa pagsabak sa new normal. Ultimo yung simpleng vertical line test, horizontal line test, sobrang importante yun kasi not all, talaga naman natama si Sir Michael kanina na hindi lahat ng teachers nag-discuss itong topic na to sa mga students. So, talagang dapat din natin ini-skip kasi ito yung important knowledge na kakailanganin pa ng mga students natin sa pagsabak ng higher math nila. Ayun po. So, sobrang galing and sobrang okay din talaga na you have the technology on your hand na kaya mong i-verify, kaya mong i-check agad-agad yung concept mo kung tama ba yung mga answers mo. So, what I like about the Casio calculator, meron siyang natural display na talaga makikita mo kung ano yung nakasulat doon sa book. Doon mo rin siya makikita. So, ma-avoid natin yung confusion kasi magulo na yung math. So, mas ma-avoid natin kung ganun na yung pinapakita sa atin ng calculator. Sobrang galing po. Wala akong masabi. So, sobrang galing ni Sir Michael. Ayun po. Congratulations po, sir. Sobrang husay po. Talaga pong magagamit namin po as teachers sa pagsabak namin sa new normal.
Thank you.
Thank you. Siyempre, Sir Buddy, hindi naman mag-checker dyan kung di magaling yan di ba?
Yes. At si Sir Michael, paalis na talaga, sir. Noong naging first time ko na-meet si Sir Michael, nung Casio Tech din natin ata yun. So, isa sa mga natutunan ko sa kanya, sabi niya ron, we need to do it in a primitive way. Yung talagang magka-calculate muna yung bata kasi that's the essence of mathematics. And then may mga topic kasi sa math na talagang hindi kaya ng mental calculations at ng manual. So, ano nangyayari? Binabangga ni Sir Michael dun sa old approach and then sa paggamit ng Casio calculators. Lagi natin isipin, eto mga emulators po natin can be downloaded for free sa official page po ng ating Casio calculator. I think it's Casio edu.casio.com. So, ayan po yung ating pwede puntahan ng mga teachers po natin kung gusto po natin na i-download ang ating mga materials po for our Casio session. Again, kung gusto niyo pong i-download ang mga emulator, punta lang po tayo sa edu.casio.com/software license/index.ph. So, dyan niyo po madadownload ang ating mga calculators at mga emulators and yung mga materials ng Casio nandyan po. And meron din po tayong mga updates regarding Casio. You can visit their official Facebook page. It's https://www.facebook.com/Casio Calculators Philippines. Diyan po natin lahat inilalabas ang ating mga webinars and announcements about Casio Calculators. So, Sir Michael, kung feeling mo, tapos na ang ating commentator, meron pa tayong isa pang guest commentator this morning. I think kilala mo to. At nakasalamuhan niyo na po ang ating next commentator. I think she is a former teacher at Makati Science High School and currently based at Makati Science High School. She is also a math teacher, and now I think she is teaching in United States of America.
Wow.
Let us all welcome Ma'am Beatrice Lee. Hello, ma'am.
Hello po. Magandang Saturday
Hello, Ma'am Lee.
afternoon po. Midnight po dito sa amin. Sir Lee, opo. Nakakamiss po yung mga ganitong training po sa Pilipinas, and especially we're doing it, everything is being done virtually po. So, pero kudos po to Casio and Mr. Lee, and I know Team Makati po na naging speaker, like Mr. Mark, Revi, and the whole division. I know that you've been working so hard to help Filipino teachers, not just teachers in the Philippines. Katulad ko nga po, you make it available for everyone, yung mga dinidiscuss niyo po. So, aside from the content na katulad sabi ni Ma'am Ray kanina, aside from the content, I really like 2 points on Mr. Lee's talk, yung seminar niya nga po ngayon. Naging reflective po siya in a sense sa akin, kasi yung una pong point na nagustuhan ko dun sa sinabi ni Sir ay yung sinabi niya na minsan parang ini-skip nating ituro yung komplikado. Kasi minsan kasi meron tayong prejudice na mahirap yan, hindi naman maintindihan yan. So minsan hindi na natin, parang in passing lang, ibibigay lang natin sa kanila, hindi natin talagang tinuturo na nalalaman ng mga bata. So parang yun nga, ipakita niya din at the end na there is really a danger to keeping something like na kahit gaano pa yun sa tingin natin insignificant, para kasing hindi natin mabibigay yung full potential na mag-isip ng bata pag hindi na natin binibigay yung lahat ng options sa kanila. Parang gano'n. So, the second thing is, yung gusto ko yung sinabi ni Mr. Lee na yung property. Kasi sometimes, hindi natin nakikita yung mga exemptions sa property. Lalo na nga sa Ligo, kasi medyo may mga specials, lalo sa inverse function. So, nasabi niya na, minsan kasi po, parang pag nag-examples tayo, parang we give examples to fit the property. Pero nakakalimutan natin, what about the counter example? So, baka meron po kasing mga ganun. So, dapat avoid natin na mag-overgeneralize. So, yun po yung mga nagustuhan ko dun sa, na namimiss ko na nagkakaroon ng time to reflect. And also po, I'm so glad I have my show calculator here with me. I brought it here with me. Ito po yung napanalunan ko sa mga raffles. So, I was also eyeing the pink calculators, but sabi nga ni Boss Joel, parang Lazada, at saka paano naman ng mga taga-America, sir? Ayun po. Thank you, Mr. Lee. It was nice to see you again. Namimiss ko po ang Makati.
Yes, we miss you also. Yan ang isang asset namin, si Ma'am Beatrice.
Hindi naman po.
Ayan, so maraming salamat, Ma'am Beatrice. So, Ma'am, correct me if I'm wrong, currently, nagtuturo din po kayo dyan sa Amerika po, tama po?
Opo. Opo.
So ma'am, alam naman po natin na this pandemic, hindi lang apektado rito ang Pilipinas, apektado ang buong mundo, and ang pinaka-tinamaan ng todo-todo, bukod sa ekonomiya, ay yung ating education sector.
Yes.
Ano kayang pagbabago, ma'am, sa iyo, ma'am? Ano yung pagbabagong nangyari sa Amerika? And ano yung tingin mo kaya naming i-adapt dito sa Pilipinas? And yung Casio calculators, paano kaya talaga siya mas ma-utilize pa ng ating mga students and teachers based on your experience po?
Actually po, dito sa Amerika, nung nag-close po siya ng March 13, ano po, 16, the Monday, noon hindi na po kami pinapasok. So, lahat din po kami nagulat. So, lahat kami. But prior to that, in the classroom settings po, each student in high school po, they have their own laptops na provided ng school. They also have scientific calculators na provided din ng school. However, what they're using po is Texas na calculator. So it's also almost the same thing as the C3 natin or ano po yung graphing calculator natin dati na sa Casio po. So almost the same thing po, pero parang nakita ko po na mas user friendly po yung mga ng Casio ng mga. So yun po, para siguro katulad po ng sinasabi kanina, technology kasi sa amin po ngayon hybrid po kami po. So parang 2 days nasa school, tapos 3 days e-learning po sila. Now, we have a lot, parang madami po kaming platforms na pwedeng gamitin. We have, like, dati pa po, siguro ng mga bago pa mag-summer breaks namin dito, parang nababanggit ko na po mga kaibigan ko dyan po, sila Miss Desiree Gumapa. Nasasabihan ko na po nagagamit po namin yung iExcel dito na, I think it was Sir Mark po. Nasabi ko, maganda yung iExcel. Tapos parang nakita nga daw niya po. So, siguro po yung paggamit ng calculator, kasi nga po, dito talaga yung mga bata, kahit yung pagpindot na lang ng mga ipapahanap pa sa iyo yung so, i-expose po siguro talaga sa mga device. May seminar po ako dating may seminar po ako dating na-attend na kay Sir Dr. Simon Chua. Parang sabi niya dati na parang yung mga gadgets na yan, nandyan yan to aid. Parang sabi niya, kailan niyo pa papagamit yan kung hindi ngayon? Sabi niya, we're not testing yung arithmetic skills na nila. We're testing there. Kasi paano mo naman, hindi naman nila alam, how do I say that? Parang kung hindi rin naman nila alam yung i-input nila. So, that's the math in there eh. So, parang alam na nila yung math, kaya alam nila kung anong i-input nila. So, parang ganun po. So, may concept na po sila. So, parang sinasabi lang doon, sayang naman, alam niya sana tama na yung solutions niya. Nagkamali lang siya sa integers, pag-add ng integer, kasi hindi pinagamit ng something like that. Ayun po.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Beatrice Lee, for that very comprehensive sharing of your experience as a teacher. So, disclaimer lang, Sir Joel, no? Hindi po related sa isa't isa. Si Sir Michael.
Alam ko dati, baka kamag-anak ko.
Kasi pareho sila, hindi po sila related. Ayan, Sir Joel, no?
Actually,
yes, Sir Joel.
Actually, si Ma'am Bea is one of our Casio teachers din bago siya pumunta ng ibang bansa. Yun, one of the champions din yan ng competitions namin. Yeah. Very humble, di ba?
Pero talaga, sir, parang pag-ibig, aalis, pero babalik din naman.
Opo.
Hugot ka pa.
Sabi ko nga, see you later po. See you around.
Yeah. So, sir, narinig natin yung paghahanda ng ating global arena, specifically sa Amerika, na talaga totoo yung sabi kanina ni Ma'am Bernice, no? Ay, ni Ma'am Beatrice, sorry po. With the help of webinar session, hindi lang tayo nakapokus sa isang area. Marami tayo nararating. Basta ma-share lang yung page ni Casio, may share lang yung mga sites na nag-live tayo. Marami tayong mararating. Kasi kagandahan eh. Dati ilan lang. Ngayon kahit sino pwedeng matuto. At pag natapos na ang session, hindi mo naintindihan, punta ka lang ulit sa official Facebook page ng Casio. It's www.facebook.com/Casio Calculators Philippines. Diyan po lalabas ang ating mga video. Pwede niyo po silang i-replay ng i-replay. Ngayon naman si Ma'am Ray Reyes kaya. Ma'am Ray, paano po kayo naghahanda sa ating paparating na school year? And as a teacher, ma'am, na-discuss na naman yung Casio Calculators kanina. Yes, ma'am.
Yes po. Ngayon kasi, sobrang busy rin ng mga teachers ngayon sa pag-prepare ng mga modules nila. Tapos, continuous naman yung pagsali nila ng mga webinars kasi continuous yung learning ng teachers kahit wala pang students. Pinag-aaralan namin yung mga useful platforms na pwede namin magamit para sa mga students namin. Kasi in this new normal, we want to provide quality education for our students. Ayaw naman natin na mag-suffer yung quality ng education natin kahit na bago na yung ating method ng pagtuturo sa panahon ngayon. So, continuous yung pag-aaral, continuous yung paggawa ng mga modules na talaga namang makakatulong para sa mga students namin. And ayun nga, pinag-aaralan din namin yung mga iba't ibang technologies na pwede namin ma-integrate sa classroom namin, sa online classroom namin kung para sa aming mga online class or para sa mga modular learnings namin, modular learnings para sa mga students.
So, ayun po. Maraming salamat, Ma'am Ray Reyes. I think, Sir Joel, no? Nabanggit mo sa akin before na talagang Casio has been the partner of DepEd for so long and meron tayong mga binigay ng mga calculators and I think nagkakaroon na tayo ng regional training. Nakita ko na nakaraan parang somewhere in Calabarzon meron tayong training ng mga teachers. Tama ba Sir Joel?
Yeah, that's correct. Actually, si Sir Lee is one of the trainers noon sa training sa I think Tagaytay yata yan, no, Sir Lee?
Tagaytay.
And Cebu. Tagaytay and Cebu. So, nag-conduct kami ng training on how to use it, yung graphing calculator. Kasi kami sa Casio, we don't want naman na maging white elephant yung mga items natin. So, kailangan ma-utilize talaga ng mga teachers and mga estudyante. Yun.
Yes. So, ayun, no, ngayon, kagandahan dahil sa new normal tayo, alam naman natin, in reality, medyo yung mga calculators natin sa school is enough, pero hindi na kayang bigyan lahat. So, with these emulators na i-download na ng mga learners natin, pag nag-synchronous learning tayo, pwedeng magamit ng mga learners natin itong mga emulators na to. Kailangan lang nilang puntahan ang edu.casio.com/software license/index.ph. Hindi lang po emulators ang nandyan sa site ng Casio. Nandyan na rin po ang mga modules at ang mga guides para sa ating teachers at sa ating mga learners. So, Sir Michael, any last words to our viewers and to our math teachers sa buong Pilipinas at sa mga Filipino teachers around the world?
Basta continue to love numbers. At don't forget to the teacher cannot replace by a technology. Basta lagi pa rin tayo, we will go back to a primitive solution, then that's the time you always verify with the technology. Still, tayo pa rin ang bida, no? Ito mga technology na to will never replace our teachers.
Yeah. So tama yun, no? Maganda yung sabi ni Sir Michael na talaga the best visual aid sa ating learners ay tayo as a teacher and we have this technological advances na pwede nating magamit. And thanks to Casio Calculators Philippines for being our consistent partner sa ating pagpapalaganap ng mas maraming kaalaman sa paggamit ng calculators at sa pagharap ng mga kaguruan natin sa new normal. And sabihin ko na rin po, itayin niyo po, lalabas po ang ating mga Casio Tech teachers sa ating DepEd TV. Ngayon pong October 5, ang start po ng ating DepEd TV, may nakapag-shoot na po. Shoutout lang natin ang ating kaibigan na si Ma'am Reverie Vargas. Ayan, si Ma'am Rev. Sir Joel, tumapos ng 2 oras sa taping.
Yeah.
So, ayan.
Siyempre, Makati's pride yan.
Yes.
Dugong Mr. Lee yan.
Yeah. Napansin ko rin talaga, no, mga speaker natin dito talaga ay mga, kung hindi man mga outstanding teacher, ng kanilang division, MTAP exemplary teacher naman ang mga kalidad ng ating mga kaguruan. So Joel, any last words bago tayo magtuloy at magpaalam?
Actually, again, maraming salamat to Mr. Lee, to Miss Lee, and to Miss Ray for today, no. Kasi si Miss Lee talaga kinulit ko pa yan kagabi no, para mag-participate. And maraming salamat, ma'am, napuyat kaya namin. Actually, isa sa mga natuwa ko kanina sa presentation ni Mr. Lee, tumatak sa utak ko yung si teacher, sabi niya, wala kang karapatan na sabihin sa bata na alam mo na yan, ha, kung hindi mo talaga na-explain. So, kailangan talaga ma-explain mo yung isang, mathematics expression bago mo sabihin sa bata na dapat alam mo na yan. Yun, so, again, sa mga teachers, we're giving this workshop for free. Please share it to your co-teachers and students for free as well. Again, maraming salamat po sa lahat ng nag-participate for today.
Honestly, Sir Joel, maibahagi ko lang. Si Sir Lee is our education program supervisor in mathematics, and I think kaklose din niya ang aking ninong na education program supervisor din ng Mandaluyong na nanonood, na lagi akong tinukulit. Buds, i-post mo na sa Facebook page natin yan. I-click mo na sa YouTube. Shoutout lang sa aking ninong Restituto Rodelas ng SDO Mandaluyong.
Classmate ko siya.
Sa Ateneo po, sir. At sa lahat po ng officials ng SDO Mandaluyong, SDO Makati, at lahat ng regional offices sa buong Pilipinas, maraming salamat po. Tuloy-tuloy lang tayo sa paghahanda para sa maparating na pagbubukas ng klase. Again, thank you, Ma'am Beatrice Lee, Ma'am Ray Reyes, Sir Michael Lee, and Sir Joel Serrano.
Thank you,
Kita-kits
everybody.
tayo next week. Meron pa tayong susunod na session. Salamat po. So, ayun po, natapos na naman po ang ating episode ng ating Casio Tech webinar session. Pero bago tayo magwakas, nabanggit po natin kanina na ang ginamit po ni Sir Michael Lee for the presentation is the ViewSonic. So, shoutout lang natin si Miss Antoinette Yamson and James Chow. Sila po yung mga partners din natin na tumulong sa atin sa ViewSonic webinar. Again, this webinar session is brought to us by Casio Calculators Philippines, headed by their Casio Educational Unit Head, Mr. Joel Serrano, na talagang laging nariyan para sa atin at para suportahan po tayo. Again, dito po nagtatapos ang ating 7th session ng ating Casio Webinar Tech session, pero hindi po ibig sabihin na natapos na po tayo rito. Marami pa po tayong i-discuss. We'll be discussing a lot of things about mathematics, and we have a big surprise to you sa mga darating na linggo. Inaayos na lang natin ang mga legalities ng papers na yan, but sooner or later, all of us will enjoy, and I think mas marami ang sasali sa ating contest sa darating na mga linggo. Muli, sabi ko nga po, hindi madali para sa atin ang nangyayari ngayon, lalo na this is the new normal. This is new to us, hindi tayo handa. But the DepEd, the regional offices, at ang ating mga division offices ay nariyan. They are exerting their efforts para maihanda po tayo sa paparating na academic year. Lagi natin tatandaan, school year 2020 to school year 2021, hindi lang ito purely online learning, hindi lang ito synchronous and asynchronous learning. We can utilize different learning modalities such as blended learning approach, modular learning approach, and we also have our DepEd TV and Teleradio. Ang ating DepEd TV will have its simulation next week, and our Teleradio will also have its dry run next week. So, ihanda po ang ating sarili at marami po tayong pagsasamahan sa mga darating na panahon. Again, ito po ay it's a collective effort. Mapagtatagumpayan natin lahat ng bagay na ito kung tayo ay sama-sama, kapit kamay tayo at sama-sama tayo sa pagsulong ng edukalidad sa ating bansa. Again, magandang umaga po sa inyong lahat at magkita-kita po ulit tayo sa ating susunod na Casio Tech Sessions next Saturday. Again, I'm Mr. Salvador Malansala, your Educational Technology Specialist, saying goodbye, and kita-kits po tayo. Stay at home, be safe, COVID lang yan, Pilipino tayo.